Hi everyone, I'm Alister Benn and this is Expressive Photography. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I want to talk about things that we can do at midday or when the sun is shining and there's no clouds and that type of thing. So here we go. Let's get straight into that. Many times on this channel I've spoken about expectation and I've talked about the type of things that we take into the field with us. If we go into the field thinking that the light is poor, I can guarantee that great shots are not going to follow. We should be going into the landscape with an open mind, and we will definitely find opportunities if we allow the landscape to tell us what it wants us to point our camera at. Now, if we have this expectation, then you're really just going to fulfill that every time you go out. I've said many times on workshops when participants have thought that the conditions aren't very favourable to making photographs, there's no such thing as bad light, there's just a lack of imagination. And that might sound harsh, but the people who go into the landscape with an open mind can come away with great photographs, and the people who don't think they're going to make great photographs tend not to. When I started exploring various areas, I tend to go out during the day. You go for a wander around, you want there to be light so you can see where you're going and explore the layout of the land. This was the first photograph I took when I moved to live in Cornwall when I first came back to the UK. Very, very famous beach, and the rocks are fantastic, and it was the middle of the day, but I think by stripping away the colour, we have black and white, and it strips it down into a nice simple landscape. Long exposure black and white photography is great in the middle of the day because you natively have strong contrast, and you can use that contrast to make very dramatic photographs. The second thing we can definitely do is look for harsh light interacting with striking subjects. Here we have some cherry blossom down in the left hand side, and these beautiful reeds against a very dark cliff. Now, this isn't how the light was distributed, and if we quickly look at the raw file, you'll see that everything is just way more explicit, but I've used the processing techniques that I teach in my videos and in the ebook and on the other videos on this channel to strip the content all the way down to just the luminosity and contrast to show the things that we want to see. And I can't emphasize enough how important it is that what we see with our eyes and what we see on the back of the camera isn't always what we can portray when we actually get the image into the processing and start to articulate what it is we want to say. So harsh light can make very dramatic photographs. This was taken in a canyon, so the sun was very high overhead, but there was lots of shadows with the canyon walls. So we ended up with this kind of cat and mouse play between the very harsh light and the more shadowy, subdued light. And we have a very strong cool to warm transition here. And these again are some of the transitions I've talked about in other videos, which I'll recommend at the end of this one. So stay tuned for that. This is backlight. This is another great thing to do on harsh daylight conditions. Use shallow depth of field, blur that background, allow the foreground to become the subject and allow it to get more diffused as you go back into the background there. All these little specular highlights, all these little circles is just bright sunlight bouncing off brighter parts of vegetation. So don't be dissuaded with powerful light. There's always something to point our cameras at. This is another example of backlit vegetation creating an awful lot of strong contrast. The sun wasn't particularly high overhead, but it was certainly strong and harsh, and all of these little points of light on the leaves and on the branches are just drops of dew, early morning dew, which had just stayed. I mean, this is about 11 o'clock, I think this photograph was taken. So again, strong contrast, and it's a case of finding subjects that create strong dynamics. So yeah, this is another great thing to do on that type of day. I'm a big fan of flowing water, as you all know. What do we tend to go out in golden hour for? Warm colours. beautiful red clouds, dynamic, dramatic light. We can find dramatic, dynamic things in other subjects, in particular geometry of rocks and colourful rocks. This one was taken in Sweden, where the bedrock is just this incredibly orangey golden colour, and the flowing water over the top of that has created this really dynamic and quite energetic photograph with the sky nowhere to be seen. Even the surface of the water with the tension and the way that the streaking and finding interesting shutter speeds, these are the types of things that can keep you occupied for hours, you know, just engaging with, because every single shot is different. You know, we worry about landscapes being static and not being, you know, fluid. This is about as dynamic and exciting as you can get, because every fraction of a second, the composition is changing as the refraction of what's underneath is changing on the surface. Super engaging landscapes. And if we want to fill our days with engagement and excitement and curiosity, there's no better subjects than these. Finally, this one was taken in Florida. I was over giving a lecture a few years ago, and this is down in the Florida Keys. So Barb, if you're listening, this is for you. This is a very, very typical habitat in the Florida Keys, where you've got these old pines and all these incredible plants. You know, this, if I just show you this one, you know, it's fairly ordinary. And again, you know, the sun might not have been midday, but it was certainly quite high in the sky and the light was super harsh. But we can use super harsh light to our advantage. If we can find graphic elements, those graphic elements juxtaposed with the great light, with that powerful light, creates an awful lot of contrast. And we can strip our compositions down to geometry, angles, contrast, luminosity, diffusion as we move through the frame. All of this stuff I've talked so many times about before. Every day I'm producing these videos just to answer people's questions, you know, so I'm not putting a ton of time into sort of selecting images, but these are all images that were taken under what most people would consider to be harsh light. So, you know, I would embrace all the light we can get, and hopefully this type of examples gives you a little bit of inspiration to maybe not be quite so judgmental when we're in the field. Thank you very much for watching this little short tutorial. I hope you found it useful. If so, please give me a thumbs up and a subscribe. That's super helpful. Thank you very much. We'll be back tomorrow with another subscriber's question, which is a really, really good one, which is, what's more important, composition or light? And I'm sure my good friend Adam Gibbs will contest everything I say. So stay tuned for tomorrow's video where we'll be looking into that really interesting topic. Thanks for watching. It's really appreciated, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye for now.